Well, today's message is Sight by Easter Light. And when I was in 8th grade, my mom died. I had just come from visiting relatives in New Jersey for 30 days, and I was at the train station. There was no one there to greet me. I had to carry my suitcase about 8 blocks to home, and found out Mom was in the hospital. And my brother was there, my older brother and my dad, and Mom died in the hospital. It was an aneurysm that broke. And later on, out of that, my brother said, I'm going to become a doctor. I want to help people that maybe it won't happen to their mom. And as he was a doctor years later, he told me, Ed, Mom lied to me. I was there in the hospital with her as they were working on her, and she held my hand, and she said, she could see my worried face, and she says, everything's gonna be all right. And it wasn't. She died. But when we have sight by Easter light, we have the understanding that my mom was right. Now, that morning, around somewhere between maybe 2 and 4 o'clock, we had an earthquake. There had been some rains the previous night. The stone in front of the tomb was bounced away. I had the privilege, when I went on my pilgrimage to the Holy Land, they actually had a tomb that there was this British officer called General Gordon who was killed in the Sudan some years later. He was sort of famous. He thought he saw on the hillside the face of a skull. He checked it out and he found a tomb and a garden. And he thought that might have been Jesus' tomb. So British pastors take care of that tomb. And when you walk in there, there's like a opening where the stone would have covered it. You could look in, and on one side there's a long slab. If you were a mourner, you could mourn. And going then facing where the choir is, there was a slab along each wall. And now it was chained off because tourists would come and chisel a piece of that stone off to take with them as a tourist souvenir. But that's a spot where it might have been like what Jesus' grave was like. And there, the stone would be sealed so no one would rob it. The temple authorities had established temple police to be there. But when the earthquake hit, the stone was knocked off. They ran away. They were scared. And Jesus, the stone was not moved to let Jesus out. Jesus had a new kind of body. The stone was moved so people could look in and have the possibility of faith and have the possibility of seeing life in a different way. Seeing life through Easter's light. Now, Nicodemus had brought spices on Friday, a late afternoon. Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate to use his own tomb that he had for Jesus. And Pilate gave him permission. And that was done. The stone was sealed. The guards are set. Now what happens now is the women, they were the faithful ones. They were the ones around the cross when the disciples ran away. The women said, we're going to improve on that job. And we have 2 different groups of women. Mary Magdalene was in a different social order. And then we have 3 other women, and I'll give you their names. They're all going to go down, and they're going to try to redo the job. And it was Mary, the mother of James, one of the disciples. And then there was Salome, the mother of James and John. She's the one who asked that her kids be the chief ones in the kingdom. And thirdly, we had Joanna. Joanna's a key player. Now think about this. You got 12 guys going around the countryside with Jesus, other followers. Who's going to pay for it? Joanna. Her husband was the chief financial officer for King Herod. He handled money. So she's going to help too. So she's going with the 3. Mary Magdalene goes by herself. Now, Mary Magdalene, they all have a problem. And the problem is this. How are they going to get that stone moved? And how will they get to put the ointment on? Now, in the custom of that day, Their job, they had to put ashes on their faces. They had to look really gloomy. They had not to comb their hair. They'd look a fright. And they would be barefoot, so they could feel the stones to help them feel the pain. It was very therapeutic to be this way, to feel the pain, to let the grief out. And they often would have intense grief, at least for 6 days. Now they're walking along, and they're disappointed. I have here some palms from Palm Sunday. They're kind of dried out. Now, we have in our parade, it's all cleaned up. These palms are all over the walkways where the pilgrims had left them. They're crunchy. They're a bit wet from the rainfall that happened on Friday and on Sunday morning. So they're crunching these leaves as they're walking along. They go by the sentry. The sentry's probably asleep. And I want to tell you a story about Mary Magdalene. She comes, and did you ever have a bad day that got worse? I mean, this is really a bad day. And she's sorrowing and she's hurting, and now it's going to get worse. Now, here's the other point. Easter has happened. Jesus is alive, but everybody's sad. So when does Easter occur? It occurs when we could hear it and believe it and then move to our heart, where the heart gives us some joy and strength. There's the key. So they're all sad, they're crying, they look awful, and yet it should be the happiest day for them. And Mary Magdalene, when she gets to the tomb, the stone's rolled away. There's no one there. And it's empty. But she's pretty sharp. She figured out someone stole the body. Oh no, this is how it gets worse. Somebody stole the body. And now she's really, really upset. And she is crying. The sun's just beginning to rise. The sun's in her eyes. And there's a person outside. And she thinks it's the gardener. And she makes a request. Could you tell me where they put the body? I just want to take care of Jesus. Could you tell me where they put the body? And she's in the depths of her despair. And one word changes her life. And one word has the possibility of changing our lives. Mary. Now, there was a way Jesus said that. And she understood. Mary. Oh, Mary. Rabboni. Master, it's you. And she's just so excited. And she's gone from the depths of despair to incredibly happy. I want to tell you what happened just before that. When she saw the first time the grave was empty, she goes back to tell the disciples, we got a problem. The grave was robbed. I need some help. And John and Peter have run ahead of her. John is younger. He outruns Peter. And he comes to that grave. And he looks inside. And he comes to faith. Now what brings him to faith is this. The wrappings of the body are still there, but the cloth for the head was specially shaped. Now, the guide I had in Israel said, when a carpenter or other craftsman did their work, they didn't sign their name to a job. They had a cloth, and it would be like when you go to a restaurant, they can make some very creative designs with the napkin, the cloth napkin, and the carpenter or the craftsman would have his own design on that table, whatever it is he made, and it meant it was finished. You could take it. And John sees it's finished, and he believes. Peter doesn't know. They go back. Now, Mary Magdalene has come back and now has met the Lord, and she's excited. Now, how about the three women? When they came to the grave, they were told that Jesus was raised. Then on the way, they meet Jesus, and this is going to be really interesting. They're so excited, they run back to where the disciples are hiding behind locked doors. They're worried about being captured, and they pound on the door, they answer it, and they say, we have good news to tell you. We have wonderful news to tell you. Jesus is alive. And they looked at the women. Charcoal, ashes, hairs of fright. Their clothes are ripped and torn. Their feet are bleeding. You had a hallucination. You lost your minds. You lost it. Those disciples were told Jesus was raised, but all day today, they're sad. All day today, they're sad. In other words, they don't receive the light by Easter. Easter's light. You had that kind of vision, that sight. It's not until they meet Jesus in the evening, which is technically for them Monday, that they come to faith. And one of them was not there when Jesus meets them that evening, and Thomas has to wait a whole week without Easter faith, without Easter sight. So here's the key. Can we trust Jesus? Can we believe the Scriptures? And then can we go from our thinking to our heart? And I'm going to close with a really good illustration. There's a Ronald McDonald House in Chicago. And the gal who ran it for a while was Jody Anderson. And Jody had a problem. Some of the kids, when they come, go home. They're going to be better. Other kids die. And it's so sad. And she had trouble. She couldn't say goodbye to the sick kids. She always said hello to them because she believed in her head about the resurrection, but it didn't reach the heart. It did not reach the heart. And she has this patient called Toby who had leukemia. And Toby would stay at the Ronald McDonald House and would play ball a little bit with Jody's husband, who would stay there, and with Jody's kids who stayed in that house. And it's getting bad, and it's getting worse. And Toby had asked her, "How come you don't ever say goodbye to me?" I always say hello. Just say hello. Well, now it comes to the last day. It comes to the end. And this is what happened. She had the summons to be at the hospital bed, along with Mom, as a single mom, to be at the hospital bed. And Toby says to Mom, I want to talk to Jody alone. Jody says, "Oh no, what if he dies when I'm here?" And she's out in the hallway. But Mom goes out, and Toby makes a request. "I have something to ask you." And she's praying, "Please don't die now." And he says, "Take care of my mom. She's going to miss me terrible. I'm all Mom has." And she kisses him on the forehead and makes that promise that she'll take care of Mom. He says, "I'm so tired." Well, the next waking for him was the last. He looked at Jody, and she took his hand. "Don't tell me goodbye, Jody. Tell me hello, like always, because we're going to see each other in God's house. Promise?" She couldn't speak. When she could speak, she said, "Hello, Toby." But something's happening to her head. It's moving to her heart, this belief. "Well, hold on tighter," he told his mom. And she did that. And then he says, "Say it." And he made an arrangement with Mom that when it was time, Mom would read Psalm 23. "Oh, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And he goes on, "And he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil." He was gone. That was it. Well, something happened to Jody. And now she caught it in her heart, that she caught the faith of the little boy. She caught it. And it changed her. Because then when she worked with kids that weren't going to make it, she could really be there and have a heart for them. And it just shifted for her. Then later she took a job, which I can't imagine ever doing this. The police of Chicago hired her to go knock on doors and say, "Your loved one died." What a thing. But for her, because she had the resurrection in her heart now, she could do it. And that's sight by Easter light. That's what Easter means. I've committed my grandparents, my mom and my dad, my brother who was a doctor, nephews and nieces, and my family. I baptize babies that have gone home to God. I'm just saying, it's not the end. We listen to little Toby. We have that faith that we could see life and live life and have a good life despite our losses. The Lord is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen.